The unstoppable passage of time will forever be a topic in music. Some bands, however, are so consumed by the past and future that you have to wonder if they'll ever have time to enjoy the present. When you spend your weekend dreading Monday, you never actually get to enjoy Saturday and Sunday. When you spend your life worrying about death, it's hard to enjoy the day-to-day. I was weeping again, drunk on the impossible past. It's a quote I recognize, not because I'm a consumer of classic literature by Vladimir Nabokov. I know it because it was borrowed for the title of the Menzingers' third album. The Menzingers are a band that seem to exist outside of time, and their third and breakthrough album is drenched with nostalgia. Talk of past lives, memories of previous lovers, and reminiscing of drunk nights doing mundane chores cloud how this was actually written by a couple of dudes from Scranton who were in and around their early 20s who really shouldn't have had much to be nostalgic about. As the Menzingers wax poetic about a summer spent smoking cigarettes, driving muscle cars, and waiting at a diner, you have to force yourself not to shatter the illusion that this is an album full of stories that an older, wiser relative would tell you over a cigar. In reality, that summer they're singing about that sounds like it was so long ago was just last year. The vocals, the instrumentation, the production, and the lyrics all come together to create a nostalgic feeling for everyone who hears On the Impossible Past, regardless of their age. It's why there's a Hard Times article about a 16-year-old fan of the Menzingers already nostalgic for his 20s. These lines on the second track, Burn After Writing, can be interpreted in many different ways, but it speaks to so many innately human feelings. It is so much easier to sit back and watch life happen to you than it is to just create something for yourself. It's eventually followed up with the chorus of, "Do my hands tell a story? Is it boring? Does that laziness turn into regret? Wasted youth? Is the story told by the calluses of your hands even one worth telling? Obsess over how you'll never get these memories back and you're suddenly drunk on the impossible past. The dark state of self-pity and loathing will consume you until you blink and time has passed. A day, a year, a decade gone by, worried so much about savoring your life that you forget to live it." Aside from a couple of straight-to-the-point punk rock bangers like I Don't Want to Be an Asshole Anymore and The Talk, their follow-up record would flip the rearview mirror to instead look forward in time. Where On the Impossible Past would examine the past and our relationship with it, Rented World would instead take a cold, hard look at death, of all kinds. How do you cope with the knowledge that everything ends eventually? Where do we go when we die? How do you move on from the death of something? These questions are simultaneously big and small. Big because the whole world has to grapple with it, and small because they've been asked to exhaustion by pretty much every respectable songwriter. The Menzingers ask these questions while sounding noticeably less accessible than they were before, which is perhaps why this album holds the least weight in their catalog. Their penchant for storytelling and knack for a slick metaphor still shine through, however, and when a band is as obsessed with the passage of time as the Menzingers are, it's only natural that their focus would shift towards ideas of what happens when something's time is up. I've been dreaming that our teeth are torn out, driving, there's no steering wheel, no doors, we can't get out. Dreams of losing teeth and being on a ride you can't get off are manifestations of our lifelong hurdle towards death. It's just another example of the Menzingers' obsession with time. All of these existential questions, up to now, have been asked through the lens of youth, the youth of 20-somethings in the Menzingers who feel that youth slipping away, and would be forced to come to grips with it because their 30s were fast approaching. At some point, you realize that you've been fretting about losing your youth when you've really had it this whole time. You've been waiting for your life to start, and then you die. Whoa. In After the Party, the Menzingers grapple with the idea that they'll never get these years back. They're supposed to be adults now, but their lives are filled with nonsense. The bleakness of Rented World is substituted for a more listener-friendly retrospective on time gone by. A neat thing about journaling or recording video or writing an album in your youth is that it serves as a mark in time for how you felt at a point in time. It's a window into your own mind from the past, just like photographs, which freeze a moment in time forever. And that's what After the Party obsesses over. The Menzingers talk a lot about how much has changed now that their 20s are over. Not young enough to be a companion, not old enough to be a guide, just a weird spot to be in, especially for people in a career as youthful as a punk rock outfit. Memories, images, and stories become all we have left. But just like the old you can be trapped and preserved inside of a picture frame, the old you also lives on in the memories of those who haven't seen each other in a long time. Julie from the Wonder Bar, I still wonder where you are, because I knew the old you, and you knew the old me, when we were both lookers. It really trips me out to think about how people who I haven't talked to since high school know me as the person that I was back then. In some ways it can be tempting to go back and think about people who knew you when you were younger, more fun, less jaded, whatever it may be. Interacting with that person would make it all too easy to trick yourself that you're young again, that you're back to being a looker. It happens a lot, whether you're hanging out with old friends or visiting your parents or something. Suddenly you're talking in the way that you used to, saying inside jokes you haven't mentioned in years, laughing at things that you don't even find funny anymore. For a moment you're transported back in time until you wonder where this alter ego of yours even came from, and you return to the present, looking backwards. There's an anxiety that comes with the thought that one day your youth will be completely behind you. What age is that? Ask a bunch of people and you'll get a bunch of different answers. Farewell youth, I'm afraid I hardly got to know you. Where On the Impossible Past felt like nostalgia for a time that hadn't gone by yet, Hello Exile feels like an actual take on the past by people who have gotten through it. The struggle for the Menzingers is to not get consumed by the past and to continue living in the moment. Look back on their memories fondly, but don't get overtaken by them. Now I imagined her memory would fade into the void and she'd only reappear every now and again. I'd smile at the thought of us, go back to my day, but that was purely wishful thinking. Living in the moment is easier said than done, but the Menzingers have always been obsessed with it. I can't wait to hear what they do next. How will they answer the question of where they'll go when their 40s are over?